this video, I'm going to cover setting up your accounts in Personal Capital. Personal Capital is a personal budgeting and money management tool. It's actually offered free by the company Personal Capital, but the reason they offer it free is because they do offer managed services that they charge a fee for. So they're hoping that you engage with them, use their free tool, and that eventually you get on their paid services and they manage your savings. Not a bad trade, I suppose, and you're under no obligation to use the paid services, so that's cool too. Personal Capital is one of two options that I recommend for managing your personal finances, the other being Quicken. And I do have a course where I walk you through setting up Quicken. That's a little bit more of a robust program, but it is a paid program as well. So anyway, hopefully this video is helpful and we at least get you headed in the right direction in terms of your personal finances. I actually do have a free course on budgeting, and that's actually the next step. After you kind of get your finances in order in a software of some kind, you're going to be able to figure out how much you're spending every month. And from there, we can go ahead and make a budget and set a savings plan and goal for you. So the link for my free course is below. Check that out after you watch this video, and in there I have a budget template and some other free tools for you to use. Also, I should mention that I do get an affiliate commission if you sign up for Personal Capital through the link below, and that's how I make some money to pay for these videos, so hopefully you do that. Thanks so much. I'm Joe DeSanto, by the way. I am an independent CFO and business consultant. I actually spent the first 20 years of my career in Los Angeles building several multi-million-dollar businesses in the advertising and entertainment space. And I have since semi-retired, and I'm working part-time doing CFO work and business management work for small businesses and high-income individuals. But I also have my website, Play Louder, and there you can find all sorts of great information on personal finance, small business, and real estate investing. So if you are interested in expanding your income potential and also keeping more of that money so it can grow and get you to the promised land, as I like to call it, a little sooner, please go check it out. I think you will find it helpful. Thanks. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe. I'm going to be releasing a bunch more videos on personal finance, small business, and real estate investing. The 3 pillars to success, as I like to call them. So if you're looking to increase your income and keep more of the money that you're making so you can invest it and grow it more quickly for the future, I think the channel will be very helpful for you. Thanks. Hi there. Okay, so what we're doing in this module is taking a look at Personal Capital, or in this video. This module, I guess, is what I would describe as personal finance section, in that I use the term personal finance to describe kind of tracking your income and expenses, and by that I mean using a computer and some software of some kind, something that you attach your bank, credit cards, and all of your financial accounts to. You download transactions in, you categorize them, either being an income or expense, and then you can look at the results of all that data and say, how much money did I make last month? How much money did I spend last month? What did I spend it on? And what is my net income, hopefully? Or, and not so, and not as good of a scenario, what is my net loss for the month? If you have a savings rate or a savings plan that you try to abide by, like every paycheck, particularly if you have, say, a W-2 job, a certain amount of money comes out and you goes into a 401k or something like that, that's great. But regardless of whether you're putting money aside into an account, if after that, and after all your expenses, you've lost money, on the whole, you might be not actually saving money. If you put $1,000 in your savings account in a given month, but after you add up your income and expenses, you've actually lost $2,000 or had a net loss of $2,000, well, you didn't really save money. You put $1,000 in one account, but then you added $2,000 to your credit card balance. So if you're not tracking your income expenses, potentially something like that could be happening, and you wouldn't really be super aware of it until all of a sudden you look at your credit card, 6 months from now, and you're like, wow, why is my credit card balance so high? So there's tools to do this. There's not that many, and I cover some of them on my blog. I do a little bit of a comparison for personal bookkeeping tools. But personal capital is a popular free one. So I want to look at, I'm going to look at in this module personal capital, and also going to look at Quicken, which is what I use. Personal capital is free. And because it's free, you can imagine that it's not super robust, but it can be helpful, and it's a good place to start potentially. Quicken, which we'll also look at, is not free, but it's not that expensive. I think it's like $100 for the year. And we'll look at the difference. So I'm just going to do a kind of a not super in-depth walkthrough of personal capital and Quicken. Now, if you're in my free course right now, you're seeing this video, I might refer to some stuff later in the course that maybe is not here, because I have a paid version of the course, and this video is in both of them. So just FYI if that's confusing. But we're going to start in looking at personal capital and just kind of walk through how you set it up. So I'm going to hit get started here. I am going to put in my email. I'm going to use a strong password. Okay, and the way personal capital works is, the reason it's free is because personal capital has a money management side to it. So, truth be told, they kind of give you this free tool with the hope that you'll use it, you'll interact with their company, and eventually maybe utilize their investment advisory services for which they make money. So it's not a bad trade. You don't have to use their investment advisory services at all, so that's fine. But because it's free, you're going to get various pop-ups about, hey, you could save on fees, blah, 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 blah. But that's okay. So they start out by having you walk through this kind of questionnaire so they can get an understanding of your situation. I'm going to say 55 here. And as you'll see when we get in there, it is a tool where you can track your income and expenses, but they do also have like a retirement planner tool and things like that. And we'll look at them. They can be helpful. Frankly, it's funny. I mean, if you're in my paid course right now, the part of the paid course largely is to kind of plan out your retirement. And I'm providing in my paid course tools to do that. And it is kind of an interesting comparison. Like when you go on and use an online calculator, it almost is confusing because you just like don't know exactly how they're, producing the results they're producing for you. Whereas with my tools, it's very clear how I'm taking the input data and like producing results. But anyways, that's a lot of extra explanation at this point. Let's see. I'm just going to put in some kind of dummy numbers for now. Let's see what happens here. Okay, tell us about your goals. This helps our team understand what's important to you. How do you manage your investments? I'm just going to say I do it myself. I kind of do. It's not exactly true. If I could change the way my money is currently managed, I would. Stop worrying about what's going on in the markets. Sure. I don't know. Now you can answer this stuff truthfully or not truthfully. And of course it's going to say, hey, level up. You've earned a free session with a personal capital advisor. It's so funny that they phrase it as, you've earned this free session. Like, I think you want to talk to me. I don't think I've earned anything. I don't really want to do this, so I'm going to see if I can get out of it. I just want to use the free tool. Okay, cool. So I was able to hit the X button, and now what it's going to do is ask you to add your accounts. So what you're going to do is connect your various accounts, like your bank account, your credit card account, your investment account, whatever you have. Now, if you're young and you don't have a lot of accounts, well, you should be happy because this isn't going to take you very long. But I'm going to go ahead and connect one account to start. It's a credit card of mine. We're going to see how that works. And then after I do this, I'm going to cut the video, and then I'm going to go add a bunch more things because I've kind of created a bit of a dummy account using some of my accounts for the purpose of illustrating how personal capital works. But let's see how this goes, and also I'll try to edit out some of this, this waiting. Okay, look at that. It is saying to me, get a text. I will say personal capital is pretty good about connecting to most major accounts. I mean, most of these softwares are good at that these days. But personal capital seems to make it pretty smooth. All right, so I'm going to let that do its thing, and then I am going to come back once I've kind of entered in a bunch of other accounts. Okay, I'm back. It's like one of those cooking shows where, they put the uncooked cake in the oven, and then 1 second later, you have a cooked cake. So what I've done is I've added just a few accounts. That credit card account that I added was here. I went ahead and added a bank account, my joint bank account. So there you go. You can see what's in there. I added one of my brokerage accounts. And then all these were done in the same way where I kind of picked the bank from their screen. And I'll remind you what that looks like. Started here, picked the bank or did a search. And what it ends up doing is for each account, it'll download a bunch of transactions. Now, I didn't set anything. I think it basically downloads roughly a month to 2 months worth of transactions. Now, when you're starting this process of tracking your finances from scratch, you kind of just got to start somewhere. It's nice to, kind of start doing this in January. So it's actually November now. So if you start kind of at the beginning of the year, it's great because you'll end up with like a full year's of information. But, regardless, you start wherever you start and at least try to build out like a month's worth of information. And in this case, it downloaded, a month to 2 months worth of transactions. So that's good. That's going to be a good place for us to start. And the goal, by the way, if you're just watching this video in the free course or on YouTube, because I have it on YouTube also, our goal here is to get a sense of what we're spending our money on in a given month so that we can create an accurate budget. And again, if you're in my free little budgeting course, the next steps is going to be creating a budget. The goal is to utilize some of this information to inform the budget so we make a budget that we know is kind of accurate. You can go ahead and make a budget, just off the top of your head or kind of guesstimating what you think you're spending, at least to start if you want to do that. But at some point, if you're really going to kind of take this whole personal finance thing seriously, you're going to have to track your income and expenses, and you're going to have to verify that your budget is, in fact, both accurate and reasonable based on, what you're doing in your life. So something like personal capital helps you to do that. And the way it does that is it downloads these transactions and it allows you to categorize them. Now, it has gone and auto-categorized every transaction, which is a good place to start. But you don't know that the way it's categorized things is correct. Some of it will be because it's just kind of guessing. Like it saw Duke Energy came through on this transaction download, and it gave that a utility category. That's great. So that worked. AIG is insurance. So it's actually getting some of it pretty well. Let's see, Florida Blue. Well, this is health insurance, not just insurance. Neptune Flood is my home's flood insurance. So it's like you're going to have to go through essentially and see how well it categorizes things or not if you want it. Now, when you click on a transaction, you can change the category here, and you can even add categories to further customize. I think you're probably going to want to do that. Now, the difference between something like Personal Capital and Quicken, which you'll see next, is like you can customize the whole categories, in Quicken, to a greater degree. And the more you can customize the categories, the better quality information you're going to get. So I guess that's to say overall, well, I think Personal Capital is a nice tool, particularly because it's free, and it definitely like gets you going. I think in the long run, the longer you do this, and of course the more accounts you add and kind of the bigger your personal financial picture gets, you'll probably want to graduate up to something that has more customizable features. And the reason is because you can extract better quality, more specific, like, more defined information, I guess, out of it. But I think, again, Personal Capital is a good place to start if you're just getting going, and particularly if you're young and you don't have a lot of accounts. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do another cut the video soon, and I'm going to go through and I'm going to categorize all these things the best I can, so we can look at the results and I can show you how that would translate over into your budget. But I'm going to do another thing before that. So I linked a bunch of accounts that where I could connect to my bank and it would download transactions. But I'm going to do another thing just because, if any of you own a home already or some property and you want to add that, I wanted to show you that you could add other things besides bank accounts. And the reason you want to do that is because one of the things Personal Capital does that's great is it shows you what your net worth is, okay? And when we're doing personal finance, we are really looking at a few kind of main things. One is we are always monitoring our net worth. We want to know what our net worth is. We want to know where we're at, like how much have we saved, but we include in our net worth any equity we have in real estate or equity we have in other valuable assets that we could sell, and extract money from. And also we're looking at our income and expenses, and we're trying to determine on an ongoing daily, monthly, annual basis, are we adding to our net worth or are we subtracting from our net worth? So those are two main components, and Personal Capital addresses those in a reasonable, basic way. So I'm going to go ahead and add my house, for example. I'm going to do, by the way, you can add your home with a Zillow value. I never do that because Zillow values are always all over the place and they're often not accurate. And the Zillow value for my house is completely inaccurate because I bought it needing a huge renovation, and I did a huge renovation, and now the Zillow value doesn't really reflect that. So I'm going to add a home manually. I'm going to call it my primary residence. The address is required. I don't know why it's required if you're not using Zillow, but I'm not going to use Zillow for the home estimate. I'm going to put in the value myself. Now, when I put in values for my real estate in Quicken or in Personal Capital, what I like to do is I like to subtract what the commissions and fees would be if I had sold it. Because, like, for instance, I'm going to say my house is worth about $725,000. But if I sell it, I'm going to spend at least 6 to 7% in fees and commissions and so on. So it's really not accurate to put $725,000 as the value of the house. That might be the sale value, but the net value to me is going to be less than that. So I'm going to times that by 94. I'm going to assume 5% sales commission and 1% other fees. And that really gives me a value of 681,500. And I do that for all my real estate because I want my net worth to be accurate when I'm looking at it. And if I have a lot of real estate, and if it's like, you know, worth over $1 million, but really I need to subtract 6 or 7% of that for it to be accurate, well, I'm going to do that. Anyway, I have a HELOC on my house, and that is in here. So now, while this is not my full financial picture by any stretch, I've put in at least some of my accounts, and I'm looking at sort of a dummy net worth. But I have a house in here. I have the mortgage that I have on there. I have one credit card, one investment account, and one bank account. And if that were all of my accounts, then this would be, an accurate net worth. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut the video. I'm going to go in and I'm going to categorize everything as well as I can, and then we're going to look at personal capital and the results of categorizing all these transactions and talk about how that helps us do budgeting. Okay, stand by. Hello again. Okay, so I've cut ahead. What I've done is I've gone through my accounts and the transactions that they've downloaded, and I've categorized them the best I can. I've done some custom categories, to be so the way the results were displayed is a little bit more specific. Like instead of having taxes, I put property taxes. This actually should be life insurance. And the purpose of doing all that is to try to get a clear picture of what I'm spending my money on. So now I'm going to just go give a little bit more overview of personal capital and what's going on here. So obviously we've got our accounts in, talked about categorizing. I'm doing that. I've done that. And then up here you have different essentially tools or sections of the site. So the dashboard is kind of the summary page. Now, a little bit of the problem with like something like personal capital is it's more of what I call like a closed system, in that it works the way it works. It displays the information generally in a predefined way, the way that it deemed would be maybe the most valuable. And then it has a bunch of like automatic tools that try to glean information and give you information. But the problem is it's not super customizable. So if the way it's giving you information is not that helpful for you, or not the way that you can digest it the easiest, you're kind of a little stuck. So that's where graduating to like a more robust or paid product like Quicken, you'll be able to refine it and get results in the way that makes more sense to you oftentimes. No system's perfect, but if you're not too worried about digging in and getting too nitty-gritty about it, again, personal capital is a good potential solution and starting place. But like, for example, it's got this budgeting section that says $9,000 over my $107 budget, and I'm like, I didn't put that in. It's sort of like extracting information and trying to put together a budget for me, but it doesn't have that much information to work with at this point because I've only have about a month's worth of transactions in here. So it somehow came up with a $107 budget, and it's like, I don't know why, and I don't really want to try to figure out how to like force this scenario, this software to work perfectly for me. But so you're going to run into weird stuff like that it's in some ways it's trying to give you helpful info, but it's not like, it's not, either doesn't have enough info to produce a good result, and it ends up giving you strange information. So you'll have to decipher what's worth knowing, what's not, but I'm going to show you the things probably to most focus on, at least at the beginning, until there's enough data in here for the automated stuff to make more sense. But you have your overview, you have your net worth page, which again is pretty much just a mirror of what's happening over here on the side. So that's not all that helpful. It does have like a full transactions page. This basically is compiling all the transactions from all the accounts into one list. It's kind of what would probably be known as a general ledger, in accounting. Not particularly helpful in my opinion, but whatever. Banking is probably the most helpful one to start, and this is really what's looking at your income and expenses. So cash flow would be the term cash flow in and of itself is probably saying it's adding together your income and expense and kind of showing you a net result. And so personal capital does it in this one way, in this particular visual format of starting at the beginning of the month and kind of where you ended at the end of the month in terms of net income versus expense. But up here, you want to make sure you have all the right accounts selected when you're looking at this. Basically, you want to have any accounts that have money going in and money going out. So that would be like checking accounts, savings accounts, credit card accounts, maybe like a home equity line of credit, and that there's probably interest getting charged to that account every month, for example. But like your brokerage account, the only money coming in or going out of that would be either dividends or interest coming in, or maybe advisory expenses or trading expenses going out. But you could include it, but it's not going to have a lot of just ongoing like cash in, cash out. It would have stock price appreciation or depreciation, but until you sell a stock, none of that's realized, so it wouldn't be like recorded as income, say. But anyway, you want to check all the accounts, and then you can say, I'm going to put last month because that's October, and that probably has like the most complete picture now that I've categorized stuff from October. Now again, like this is not my whole financial picture because it doesn't have all of my accounts, so it's going to be sort of not complete, but it's got my bank account and main credit card, so it's going to be somewhat close. But it's showing me October is the solid line. So basically it's saying I lost money in October, which is actually true because I didn't deposit any checks from clients in October. Sometimes I get checks at the end of the month or the beginning or whatever. And so it's just random that sometimes I won't have deposits. Now in something like Quicken, I could actually manually adjust a transaction. Like if I made a deposit on November 1, but it was really for October, I could trick Quicken and just change that transaction and be deposited in the books on October 31st. So it would show reality a little bit better. But with something like personal capital, you can't change the dates on transactions, so you kind of just stuck with exactly when the money came in and out of your accounts, which doesn't always sort of reflect like when the income, like what the income is really associated with. Like I have income for October, but it's not showing up in here, if that makes sense. But in any case, this is showing like, hey, you made money, you had money in, you had money out, and kind of this was the net result of where you started and where you ended. Now, this particular chart is not super helpful for me, just the way it's displayed, like, and the fact that I can't adjust the dates in the transactions. It doesn't really represent perfect reality for me, so that kind of makes it a little bit less helpful. But I'm going to look at the expense next, and I'm going to make sure I have all my accounts selected, and I'm going to look at last month, and it's going to show me the month I've selected, solid line, and then the previous month for comparison. Now, this is pretty good. When you're looking at just expenses, in a given month, it's basically everything you charged in your credit card or that went out of your bank account. You've categorized it, and you've gotten a pretty good picture of what you spent your money on. Now, this is what I would use to either make a budget or validate a budget. So you want to, at least have a good solid month's worth of expenses in a program like this. You want to have them categorized, and you want to see like, okay, what did I spend on groceries? What did I spend on, my child care? What did I spend at restaurants? And this is actually pretty accurate. So groceries, we spent about $1,200 last month. That's It sounds like a lot, and we're only a family of three, but it adds up. And frankly, my wife has very particular dietary restrictions because she's got some unique food allergies and stuff. So she buys meats from certain more expensive places. So our grocery bill's probably a little higher maybe than your average, but that's a true thing. Health insurance, yep, that's what our health insurance costs. This is before a subsidy that we might get at the end of the year, depending on what our adjusted gross income is. Childcare, that's like, yeah, our kids' like monthly school costs plus some other stuff. Restaurants, we haven't been eating out again. Even in COVID, we only eat outdoors. But anyway, this is a pretty good representation of things I'm spending money on, and I can now use this to do a budget, or like to at least validate a guesstimate budget that I might have put together. And in the budgeting spreadsheet video in the courses here, we'll talk about that. The income obviously is income. Now, this is another example of where something like personal capital falls a little short. Like, I didn't have any income checks from clients deposited in October, so I don't have any of like work income, but we had essentially returns, okay, from like stuff we bought and then sent back. Well, because that's money in to the credit card or the checking account, like personal capital categorizes as income, but it's really not income. It's just stuff that was an expense then was returned. So in Quicken, this wouldn't show up as income. It would just basically offset that same expense category. So like, not that this is misleading per se, but again, it's a closed system. I can't really just like tweak the way it's giving me information to reflect real reality, and it kind of like is slightly misleading that we supposedly had $1,000 of income, quote unquote, but really it's all made up of just us returning stuff to stores, you know. The Disney return, that was a bummer. We were supposed to go to Disney in April. We didn't go because of COVID. We're just getting the refund from our passes we bought. Pretty crazy. Anyway, yeah, so this area, banking, cash flow, is probably going to be the most meaningful area, to get started. Now, as you get into this more and you have more data and you have 6 months of data and you can see real averages of cost, you can get a little bit more into the budgeting and see if their automatic budgeting feature is actually putting together something that makes sense. But again, I'm going to show you this in the course. I think when it comes to budgeting, it's really best to take the data you put in these programs and actually just put it in a spreadsheet, because you can play around with the spreadsheet in ways that you just can't play around with them in Personal Capital, for example, or even Quicken. So I don't use the software so much when it comes to putting the budget together. I oftentimes just put that on a spreadsheet. But there's some tools in here for that. There's a bills tool. You can use this as a bill reminder and do some bill paying through Personal Capital if you want. Personal Capital also now offers a bank account, so you set up a bank account with them, a checking account, they have bill pay, and it's kind of an all-in-one place. So that's a tool that you could use. Now the investing side, this is really going to look at whatever accounts you put in for your investment accounts, and this would be, like in my case, this one brokerage account, or I also have some 401k accounts. If I had all my accounts in here, it might give me more accurate info, but it uses the one investing account in here, and it will break down the holdings and things like that. So this is some of the stocks I have in this one account. I'm not going to get into why I have these particular stocks, and to be clear, I'm not recommending you buy them. yeah, so it breaks down your holdings. It tries to basically show you how your stuff is performing versus the S&P and stuff. Again, sometimes these like kind of closed system tools, they deliver information to you which can almost sometimes be more confusing than it is helpful. But I'm not an avid user of Personal Capital, so maybe if I used it more, it would all become very clear. But anyway, it's showing you it will show you the performance of your tools, of your investments. It'll try to extract what you're paying in fees, and then naturally, eventually you're going to get messages saying, hey, I see that you're paying 1% management fees in this account. We could beat that. Why don't you schedule a call? So because it's free and because it's offered by a company that does wealth management, they're going to constantly be trying to upsell you on their services. So, but again, it's free, so it might be worth enduring that. And then also, maybe eventually you do want to have them manage your account. And to give a little description about that, like for example, I have this brokerage account, right? And currently I just own a handful of stocks in it, and essentially I'm managing it myself. I'm making the investment decisions, I'm buying the stocks and so on. Now, oftentimes, even for me, managing your own money can be a bad thing because one, you're not an expert at it generally, and two, you're very emotional when you're dealing with your own money, and there's a good chance you'll muck it up. I've mucked things up for sure. This account for me is a little bit of my own account to like play with and like, address my desire to want to do it. But the vast majority of our investment money is managed by someone else. But at some point, if this were my only account and I grew it, say to $500,000, I might not be wanting to manage that myself. And maybe at that point I would say, hey, Personal Capital, let's have a conversation. And how would you manage this money? Like, what does it cost, number one? And, what would you invest in? Normally what services like Personal Capital do, and it's probably the equivalent of a robo-advisor really, is they ask you about your risk tolerance, they talk to you about your retirement goals, timeline, various things like that, and then they try to determine an investment asset allocation that is appropriate for you. And they usually essentially purchase into that allocation utilizing exchange-traded funds, and it's usually exchange-traded funds, ETFs, of indexes like the S&P or a bond index or something like that. And oftentimes they're having computers rebalance it every year and do some tax loss harvesting and various things, and then they charge you a fee for that. It's usually anywhere on the very low end, like 0.35% to 1%, depending on the size of your account and what service you're using. So you might want to talk to them about opening account. Now, the planning thing is essentially a retirement calculator. And I'm not going to get too much into it, but it's kind of a step-by-step process. They prompt you with some questions. You try to fill in as much information as possible, and then their calculator tries to tell you whether or not you're on track and whether or not your plan will come to fruition. Again, it's a closed system, so it's like you put a bunch of things in, and then they give you this result, and it's hard to know exactly how they're, one, calculating the result, and two, sometimes it's just hard to read the results and understand what they're saying. Like, I do this for a living, and I'm into it, like as a hobby, and it's like I've done this calculator, and I'm still not exactly sure what this chart means. I think it's basically saying I'm going to run out of money before I die. But again, there's like the amount of input factors are limited. You can't tweak things, and so like, when you have this calculator that's kind of like not flexible and you can't adjust it, oftentimes it can't produce really accurate results for you. So it's sort of helpful. I would definitely mess around with it. And I think it'll probably give you some general good guidance. But if you really want to get like a more thorough plan, well, frankly, you probably should buy my paid course if you're not currently in it, and you'll get a calculator that you really can dial in. Okay, so that's personal capital. It is definitely helpful. It's free. It's a good starting place. It might prove to be like all you need, at least for a while. Eventually, you might say to yourself, geez, I wish I could tweak this or customize this, or it doesn't do this well, and at some point you might want to graduate to another product. And there are there many. Again, there's Quicken, there's Money Dance, there's Countabout. In terms of like pretty comprehensive tracking software, there's other things like YNAB and Mint, stuff that's like not as robust. Mint's free actually, and it's probably not dissimilar from Personal Capital. But again, with the free stuff, they're always trying to sell you things. So like Mint, it's owned by Intuit, the company that makes QuickBooks, and they offer it free, but they're constantly trying to get you to like refinance your credit cards, and pitching you stuff, and so it's free, but you pay for it with your them being able to advertise to you. All right, so I'm going to move on. Thank you for seeing this course. Now, the next video is going to be about this similar setup for Quicken and showing you how that works. And I'm going to do probably add in the same accounts that I've added in here to Personal Capital in Quicken, so you can kind of see the difference. And I'll probably show you in there how you can customize things a little bit better, and some of the benefits of going with a more like kind of robust product, I guess. But so if you're in the free course, you're going to see this. You're going to see the Quicken option, and then I'm going to take you through my budget spreadsheet and so on. If you're in the paid course, you're going to then be able to continue on into the retirement planning. So thank you, regardless of which one you're in. Thank you for spending this time with me. I hope it's helpful, and give me an email or whatever if you have any questions. Talk to you later.